here. Uh, and then we bought that new home in College Village right before Ryan was born. We lived there until it got it wasn't big enough for us with all their children. We needed more room, and so we bought the house on Price Road, the old farmhouse. We moved there in May of 1987, and we lived there until I uh, retired from the state, and we sold the house and moved to Georgia. But during the time we lived there, that was the main residence where we lived longer than anywhere else. During that time, we joined Osborne Baptist Church, and we're active in the Baptist Church for a long time. And I bought that red Nissan Sentra, which Donna took over, and she drove it, and she loved that car. That was her favorite car. During that time, Donna attended nursing school at Rockingham Community College and became a registered nurse, and I was so proud of her. During this time, George Bush the first was elected president in 1988, and Jim Martin was elected governor of North Carolina as the second Republican governor since Reconstruction. And Donna went to work at the hospital. She worked at the hospital several months, and then she went to work at some nursing homes. And we started having foreign exchange students. Our first foreign exchange student was in 1994. Juan Pablo Berenger from Argentina spent the year with us, and that was quite an experience. And then Ryan was a foreign exchange student in Venezuela in 1995. In 1996, Paul from Argentina came, and he was a foreign exchange student, lived with us for a year. And then in 1997, Donna and Ryan went to Venezuela and visited his family he had lived with for a year. And then Joanna, that year in 1997, she came from Portugal. She was our foreign exchange student for a year. Ryan and Sean graduated high school that year, and Sean joined the Marines. What a time. We'll see him leave. I'll never forget the day that I took him up to the Eden Mall, and the recruiter came out and got him and took him, and I saw them walking back into the recruiting station there at the Eden Mall, and I was thinking in my heart, boy, that little boy, I've had him with me since birth. He's grown up. He's a man. He'll never be a boy again. And I didn't know whether I'd ever see him again because he was on his way to Paris Island. Boy, that's a hard thing for a parent to know there's not a thing you can do about it. He's on his way, and you can't influence it one way or the other. 1998, Donna began working at Winn-Dixie, and she decided she'd had enough of nursing. She didn't want to do any more of that. And she worked at Winn-Dixie for a long time. And then Ryan and I went to Venezuela in September of 1998. And we visited, spent about 3 weeks down there. What a trip to Venezuela. I'll never forget it. So much fun. That was my first airline flight. I'd never been on an airliner before. I'd flown these little single-engine planes several times, but never a big airliner. And we flew to Caracas. And that fall, Donna's parents left Winston-Salem and moved to Arizona. That was in 1998. Sad time to see them leave. Didn't know if we'd ever see them again. And Donna got a job working at the Jameson Motel in 1999. She was the night auditor there. And she bought a new Dodge Neon in 2000. That was a pretty car. It was green. I liked that car, but never got to drive it much. Donna was always driving it. And that 2001, that summer, Ryan and Aaron and Donna, all three went to Venezuela. Left me alone to take care of little Tiffany. Just me and little Tiffany stayed. And Tiffany graduated that year from Moorhead High School. Then we after that, in the spring, uh, Sean and I visited Donna's parents in Arizona. Now Donna was kind of rewarding me for letting her go to Venezuela, I think. So that's the reason she let me and Sean go to Arizona to visit her parents after she got back from Venezuela. And that was quite a trip. I'd never been to Arizona. I really enjoyed that. Never been west before. And in 2001, in January, we got Solomon, our golden retriever. And then Ryan got Toby, the little black dog. I forgot what he was. I think he was an Australian Shepherd. But Solomon was a wonderful dog. Toby was always a little off. He was kind of crazy. But I loved Solomon. He was so sweet and kind, and he became my best friend. I was his caretaker. I took care of him more than anybody else. And he was a good dog. I really miss him. I had him for about 10 years. He was a wonderful dog. In 2002, Ryan joined the Navy in January. So Sean was in the Marines. Ryan joined the Navy. And Tiffany got married to Alex in August of 2002 in Tennessee. And then in 2003, Aaron graduated from high school, and he joined the Marines. So I had 3 sons in the military at that time, all 3 of them in. And Logan was born in June 18th of 2003 at Reidsville Hospital. And in August, after we came back from the Cox family reunion, I started having mini strokes. I guess it was so stressful going all the way up there and back. But a few days after we got back from the Cox family reunion, I started having mini strokes and ended up in Moses Cone Hospital for a week. And they put me on all kinds of medications, ran all kinds of tests, told me I wouldn't live if I didn't stay on those medicines. Scared me to death. That was 2003. Been a long time. Thank you, God, for letting me live this long. And then after I got out of the hospital, about a week after I got out of the hospital, I'd always dreamed of going to Nashville, Tennessee and seeing the Grand Ole Opry. I've always been a country music fan. And Donna said, well, why don't you and Sean go there? She wasn't interested in going. So I had bought a new Kia, and we had never taken a trip in it. So we decided that we'd get in that Kia, me and Sean, and we'd drive to Nashville. The doctor told me he didn't want me driving. So I let Sean drive. And Sean's a good driver. A little hard on the accelerator, though. And I was worried he's going to blow up my little Kia. It wasn't made to drive wide open on the interstate like that. But he drove, and he drove safely, and I was looking out the window, and I saw a sign that said 40 miles to Nashville. And about that time, I heard a noise. I said, what was that? It sounded like something hit the floorboard. Ping! And I looked in the mirror, and there was just black smoke behind us. And I told Sean, I said, Sean, you better shut her down, because we just had a major problem. So he pulled it off and let it drift on the side of the road. And as soon as he did, the engine was dead. He tried to crank it, and there ain't no cranking. I said, there ain't no need to cranking it. Lost all the oil, the engine's locked up. So what had happened is I'd had the oil changed before I left Eden, and they hadn't tightened that plug in, and it had taken it that far to drop out. So we called the wrecker and sat there on the side of the road in the heat. August heat. It was hotter than the dickens. We were sitting there about, 2 or 3 hours at least before the wrecker. I saw way up. I saw a wrecker go across the bridge, and I saw him coming down. He was backing up the interstate, backing to get to us. It took him forever. He got over on the side of the paved side there and back till he got to us. And he said, "Well, I've been looking all over the place for you." And I said, "Well, we told you where we were." And he said, "Yeah, I know." So we got in the record with him, and he towed our car into the Kia place in Nashville, Tennessee. And they checked, and they got it up on the right and said, "Here's your problem. You don't have an oil plug in it. Your engine's locked up. Engine will have to be replaced." And I said, "Well, let me use your phone." That's before cell phones. I didn't have a cell phone. I called Eden to the Master Lube, the people who had changed my oil, and told them the situation. And I said, "Your people did not tighten that oil plug. That was a brand new car, and I'm going to have a brand new engine." And man said, "Okay, Mr. Cox, you're a good customer. You've been coming to us for years. We're going to treat you right, and we're going to take care of you." He said, "Let me talk to the people there." And so I gave the phone to the repairman there to talk to him. He told them that they're going to have to order an engine from California, and it'd take probably 4 days before it got to Nashville, and then a couple of days they'd have it ready to go. And so they talked to him, and the guy said, "Well, he says he's going to pay for it. We're going to send the bill to him." So I said, "Let me talk to him." So I talked to him and said, "Mr. Cox, don't you worry about a thing. We got good insurance. We're going to pay for this. We're going to pay for your stay while you're there. We're going to pay for your food while you're there. And when you want to come home, if your car's not ready, if you want to, we'll buy you an airplane ticket to fly you home. And when you get to the airport, we'll pay for you a rental car to drive back to Eden. And then when your car's ready, we'll do the same thing back." So I said, "Well, good deal." So they left the car there and took me and Sean to the motel that we had our reservation in, and we saw the Grand Ole Opry that night. We toured all the sites in Nashville, had a fun time. We got a shuttle back. We spent a couple nights, I think. Got a shuttle back to the airport, got on the airplane, and flew into Raleigh-Durham, rented a Chevy there at Raleigh-Durham, came on home, and a few days later the Nashville car dealers called and said my car was ready, and I got back on the plane and flew back out there and got my car, drove back to the motel where me and Sean had stayed. This man was going to pay the motel. I let him pay again, and I saw the Grand Ole Opry again. Saw it two weeks in a row. And next morning I drove home, and they paid for all of that, the Master Lube people. So that was a trip I'll never forget. Turned out good. Had a good time. And in October 2003, I flew out to, so I'd gone to Nashville in August. And then in October, I flew out to Monterey to visit Ryan, where he was in Monterey, California in school. And I really enjoyed that. So I got to do a heck of a lot of traveling. Never traveled any in my life till then. I just started traveling. Went to Venezuela, went to Arizona, went to Monterey, Nashville, Tennessee. Man, I was a traveler. More than I'd ever traveled in my life. Had been stuck at a dead-end job and raising a family all those years. And October the 2004, we moved to, I had retired from the state, and we moved to Lindale, Georgia, where I went to work for the Georgia Department of Labor as a vocational rehabilitation counselor. And That was a good job, good people. I love Georgia. I love working for people in Georgia. Just a good experience all the way around. But uh, with the traffic and everything, Donna was unhappy. And the opportunity to move back to North Carolina, it was a good deal, I guess, when we moved back to Spruce Pine. And in April of 2005, Donna, Tiffany, Logan, and I flew out to Arizona to visit Donna's parents. And we had a good visit. We rented a car there, a little Camry, Toyota Camry. Boy, that was a great little car. I was surprised. 6-cylinder. It had more power than two of my little Kias. It was a great car, much improved car over the Kia. But we rented that car for a week. We drove all the way to San Diego to visit Aaron, who was in the Marines out there. And we had a good trip to San Diego. I loved the drive. And we got to see the San Diego Zoo. Just had a good visit. That was a good time. And then back to spend a few days with Donna's parents in Arizona. And then we flew back to Rome, Georgia. That was in 2005. And then things were going okay in Georgia. But in January 24th of 2007, Donna's mother passed away. We got the call from Donna's dad. And Donna went to the funeral. That was a sad time. I drove her from Rome, Georgia to Birmingham Airport because we got a cheaper ticket at Birmingham. Didn't take but about 2 hours to get to Birmingham from Rome. And she flew out to Arizona for the funeral and then came back. That was in January of 2007. And then in November of 2007, my mother passed away. Both mothers died in the same year. So sad. And Donna had never been happy in Georgia, and I wasn't happy. My mother died, and I thought it'd be good if I got back home. So that's the reason we moved back to North Carolina. We moved to Altapass. And we moved in December back to Altapass. And boy, that was a cold time. Cold winter. But it was a happy time to get back home. And then 2008 February, that's when I went to work for Alpha Omega, and I loved the job. The private mental health, just didn't like the fact the company was going bankrupt. They were not generating enough money to stay in business. No money in serving people that don't have money. Crazy people who disbanded the public mental health center. They thought people would just get rich. Private companies would get rich serving all those people who didn't have any money, but it don't take a rocket scientist to figure that don't make sense. Okay, in April of 2008, my dad passed away. So I did get to spend a few months and see him a few months before he passed away. President Obama that fall was elected the first black president of the United States. Bev Perdue was elected the first female governor of North Carolina that year. So those were some important events that took place. Next year, in February, I quit Alpha Omega. I was tired of hearing them talk about they were going bankrupt. And so I went to work for New River Behavioral Health out of Boone. That was a good job. Went to work for them on March the 3rd of 2009. And then things were going well until Donna's father passed away in August of 2009. So from 2007 to 2009, we lost all of our parents. Sad. Donna and I went to Arizona for the funeral. And then 2010 came along, and it was colder than the dickens. From Christmas on, it snowed every day, it seemed. Had a lot of snow. Big snow. Biggest snow they'd had in years. Terrible winter. And January the 2nd, 2010, my brother Dennis passed away. Such a sad time. Dennis was my ham radio buddy. He got his ham license just like me, and we talked every day. I look forward to talking to Dennis on the radio. And we kept the radio waves going, buddy, me and Dennis. But when he died, what a sad time. Every day since, I think about picking up the microphone and calling him, but he's not there. I guess Dennis and I were the closest of all my brothers. And so in 2011, on March the 28th of 2011, I retired from New River. I just got tired of working, wanted something new. I just got back from a trip to California. On February the 28th of 2011, I flew out of Charlotte to Monterey, California, to be with my son Sean, who was getting transferred. He had gone to the Navy and had been out at Monterey at the graduate school for officers and got a master's degree in engineering. And he'd finished up his master's degree. He was getting transferred to Connecticut. And so he said, "Dad, you've always wanted to drive coast to coast. You've always talked about it since I was a kid. And I need somebody to drive my Toyota back from California. Could you come out and do it?" And oh man, I jumped at that opportunity, buddy. He paid for my plane ticket out there, and he paid for the gas back. And what a trip. I saw all kinds of sights. Got to see the Grand Canyon. Went to Big Sur before we left. Drove up and down Big Sur. Just a beautiful scenery. Saw the petrified forests. Grand Canyon. Just stayed right on Interstate 40 all the way back. Stopped at Eric, Oklahoma, the hometown of the Purple People Eater, and the hometown of what's the guy that sang Trailers for Sale or Rent? Whatever his name is, it doesn't come to me. That was his hometown. They had a museum there. I stopped and saw that. And after when I got back from that trip to California, I just gave up working. I told him I went in a few days after that and told him I was resigning. Gave him a 2-week notice. And Aaron and Eden got married on May the 21st of that year in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. And we'd left early that morning, left Solomon, poor Solomon. We'd left him in the house. He always stayed in the house. He was such a good dog. We got back early in the morning, up in the morning, and Solomon had been there all day by himself, our golden retriever. And when we got back, I noticed he wasn't acting right. He was, I don't know what his problem was. He'd always been healthy, basically healthy, I thought. But he didn't want to go out. He felt like he acted depressed. I took him outside. He didn't even act like he wanted to use the bathroom. I knew something was wrong with him. And so I took him to the vet the next day, and the vet said he was having heart problems. His heart was enlarged. Did some tests, and we didn't know he was sick. And he died just 4 days later. What a sad day. He had been so close to me. He had been my companion. We'd run through the woods, the paths in the woods together, just had a good time. So after those sad times, losing all our parents and my brother and my dog dying on me like that, Don and I had a talk, and we decided we gonna move. We needed to change. And so tickled Ryan to death because that's what he always wanted to do. So we flew out of the Spartanburg Airport on June the 15th, 2011, headed to Mexico. And we rented a house for a few months, and then on August the 29th, we bought a house here in Mexico, August 29th, 2011. Moved into our new house on October the 30th of 2011. And life has been good here in Mexico since. Started getting my Social Security in February of 2012, and we took a bus trip to Guanajuato and Querétaro. I can't even say, during Easter. We went back to the United States in July. Had a good trip visit there. Doc Watson died that year, and Andy Griffith died. Made our trip in August. Got back to Mexico. We'd stayed about a month. President Obama won a second term that year. We got to vote absentee ballots for him. Governor McCrory, a Republican, third Republican since Reconstruction, won the governor's race. What a disappointment. And then in December, we found out in 2012 that Tiffany had a psychiatric break. DSS had taken custody of her daughter, little Brianna. We had to do something, so we, in January, we drove back to the United States from Mexico. Drove my little Chevy Spark. What a trip from Mexico all the way to North Carolina. We went there to see what could be done about Brianna. We had to hire an attorney. We had to fight in court to get custody of Brianna. They told us that to come back next month, and they'd have another hearing to determine who would get permanent custody. We went back in July, and we got permanent custody in July. We got temporary custody the following month, but then in July we went back and got permanent custody. So what an ordeal, what an expensive legal process. We had to pay looked like the county would be glad that the grandparents would want to take the cost of raising that child off their hands, but no, they put us through the ringer. But we finally got custody of her. And after all that stress, I had found out I was having all kinds of pain. I didn't know what it was. I thought it was just a stress. Found out I needed hernia surgery. So I wanted to get the surgery in the United States, but no surgeon would see me while we were there. They said it might take 6 months to get an appointment. And so we just came on back to Mexico and got a doctor down here. They did the hernia surgery, but before they did the hernia surgery, they told me I was something wrong with my heart. They called in a cardiologist, and he evaluated it and said I needed a pacemaker put in right away, or I may not get back home from the hospital. So they put a pacemaker in and did the surgery, and I've been doing better since. Tiffany came down to visit us last Christmas, and on right before Christmas, my brother James had a heart attack and suddenly died, passed away. Right before Christmas, he had gone deer hunting. What a shock! What a year! And this year, January the 20th, they started an update on our house. We're getting upstairs, 2 bedrooms upstairs and an upstairs porch, and third level, all built onto it. They started this in January the 20th. They're still working on it. You're getting close. Hopefully within the next couple of weeks they'll be through. But my goodness, the costs. Every day something's going up. I just hope that I can live to pay for it. But we're paying as we go. Each week I pay for the materials and the builders, and if we're lucky, we'll have it all paid for when they get through. A whole lot better than the way things were going in the United States. Well, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope the sound comes out okay. And thanks for listening. Everybody, whoever listens to this in the future, just remember that it's been a rough life, but I wouldn't do anything different if I had it to do over. So long for now.